I wanted to welcome folks and introduce you to who's going to be on this call today. Just to let you know, we are recording this for folks who were not able to join us at this time. I am Adina Miller. I'm Tvnew's program director, and I am calling in from fabulous Portland, Oregon today. I use she, her pronouns. And we, of course, would rather be doing these info sessions in person and get to know you all in person, but we are happy that we get to all be together, at least on these calls, and have people joining us from all over the country. Tonight, you're going to hear from a couple of Tvnew staff members, 2 alumni, and a parent. And I guess one of the staff members is also a parent, so then you get to hear from 2 parents, technically. If you have any tech questions, feel free to put it in the chat, and Deb Massey will be happy to help you out with that. There's Deb. Let us get started. We'll have lots of time for questions and answers at the end, so please use the Q&A function if you have questions you want to make sure that we answer, and we will get to those. But first, let's hear from our founding executive director, Steve Eisenbach-Budner, who I think is going to tell us why he founded Tvnew.
Thanks, Adina, for that introduction and kind of laying everything out. And thanks, everyone, for taking a few minutes and one more Zoom call in your lives. Why I founded Tvnew, and then with the help of many hundreds of others at this point, why have we continued to keep recreating Tvnew and tweaking it as needed? So originally, I wanted to create an experience that would enable young adults to integrate and enrich their Jewish selves with their passion to build a more just world, one in which the basic needs of all humans are met. That's kind of our meta goal, sort of lofty. And to achieve it, we wanted to make sure that Tvnew experiences are grounded in day-to-day reality. In their internships, Tvnewniks work side by side with people who are experiencing the issues themselves that together we're trying to resolve. At home, participants take responsibility for and run their own households with staff support, from cooking Shabbat dinner to planning activities at home and around Portland to taking out the compost, kind of all the nuts and bolts of creating community and having a functional household and cohort. We deeply believe that Tvnewniks can both do amazing good in the world while also work in real time with real people, making a real difference while also doing real good for themselves. It's not one or the other. And in doing good for themselves, they can, for instance, pursue possible collegiate and career paths, challenging themselves in new ways. We explore the oceans, deserts, mountains, and forests and cities of the Pacific Northwest. And many Tvnewniks, I would say maybe all, seem to be creating lifelong friendships, 2 of whom I would say we have on the call today, who have a pretty deep relationship from what I can tell. So that's my perspective as executive director, but I'm really curious to see how all this has landed for Eliza and Zoe, who were both with us in cohort 5. And especially it's nice to hear, I mean, I always like doing exit interviews with people who are just graduating, which I just did yesterday and the day before with the current cohort. But it's also a real pleasure to hear from people who have Tvnew a year or 2 behind them, have been in college, and see how it plays out for them and what they now, with hindsight, see as sort of the most important pieces for them and how it's helped them. So that's it from me for now.
Thanks, Steve. We're going to turn to Zoe first. Zoe Schechter-Brody from Palo Alto, California, is now a sophomore at Whitman College. And as Steve said, was with us 2 years ago in our 5th cohort. Zoe?
Hi, I'm Zoe. I use she, her pronouns. I'm from the Bay Area. I currently go to Whitman College in Washington State. You might have seen me in that video. I feature pretty heavily in it. So I think one of the main things that I loved and appreciated about Tvnew, among many, is there's a really lovely balance between kind of going on your own individual journey and getting like a social justice internship that works for you, specifically works for your strengths and what you want to get out of the experience. And also living in community, and that being a really central part of Tivnu, and kind of going on this journey with everyone else and learning and growing together, and, you know, learning from each other with each other. When I started Tivnu, I was a little worried that I would feel like every bit of my day was structured and I didn't have freedom. And that wasn't the case at all. I think there's a really lovely amount of structure, enough that you don't feel like you're kind of just floating and wasting time. You have your internships during the day, you have community building activities, educational explorations, which I think Adina will touch on later, family dinners, but you also have tons of time to kind of do your own individual learning and exploring the city. Although, you know, this year, obviously it was a little different, but next year should be pretty normal, I think. And one thing that I really appreciated about internships, I worked at an elementary school 5 days a week. Most participants do construction, but I kind of thought that wasn't for me, and, you know, worked with Adina to find something that fit me better. So something that I love about Tivnu's approach to social justice and internships is there's no notion of like sweeping in and saving anybody. You're not like serving or working for anybody. You're working with the community according to what they need and kind of the groundwork that they've laid. So kind of learning and participating from that lens, I think, was really wonderful. And just in terms of community, I have so many lifelong friends that I met in my cohort, including Eliza, who is my roommate and is still one of my best friends in the world. I think the community in Tivnu taught me how to be a leader, taught me how to advocate for myself and build healthy friendships with communication and trust and everything you need. And I just became so much more confident in myself and my mind and my decisions and abilities. When I got to college, I ended up transferring after a semester, which was a really hard decision, but one that I was empowered to make by my experiences in Tivnu, just kind of knowing what I wanted and what made me feel fulfilled, and realizing that the school I was at wasn't that. And I had this confidence from Tivnu that I would make the right decision and be okay. And that has definitely carried me through my college career so far. So I can't say enough about Tivnu.
Thank you, Zoe. We're going to cut you off there, though, even though you have more to say. And we're going to turn to Eliza, who I should say made that video that we watched at the beginning of our webinar. So thank you, Eliza, for doing that. Eliza is from Columbia, Maryland, and is a sophomore at Cornell University.
Yeah, awesome. Hello, everyone. If anyone wants to make a similar video, really great app, 1 second every day. It looks so professional. It takes like 2 seconds to make. And yeah, I hope that gave you a little bit of a glimpse of like the fun and also meaningful aspects of Tvnew. I love my experience on Tvnew. A lot of people say a gap year is like a year off from school. I kind of viewed it as a year on, but in a year on in a very different way than I was ever thought about like learning and growing. Specifically, I loved my internships. My favorite one, I did it 3 days a week, was Street Roots, which is a street newspaper. So it's this international network of street newspapers where individuals experiencing homelessness or extreme poverty will come to this like center, this building, and buy the paper for 25 cents and sell it for $1. So they're able to make an income with dignity. So I worked the front desk there, which is an incredible experience because I was able to work one-on-one with individuals experiencing homelessness. And I've never done that before. And I might, hopefully I will again, but I don't know if I'll have that opportunity. But this kind of year of working directly with people who were dealing with this like large crisis, right? I learned about this housing crisis and like newspaper articles and in classes, but being able to kind of have this experience working with direct service and working with people is really incredible. And I don't know if I could have ever asked for something more meaningful. And now in college, when I learn about, right, like the housing crisis or different social issues, I'm able to look back on my experience on Tvnew and say, actually, I know these people by name who are dealing with this problem, dealing with this crisis. So it really puts these kind of macro issues and makes them much more personal to me, which is incredibly meaningful. And in addition to that, in addition to working at Street Roots, I also did construction. So my year, we were able to build 2 tiny homes from the ground up. And that was really, really, really cool. I don't think I ever touched a hammer before coming to Tvnew, and I helped lift walls and roofs. And that was really empowering. And when I got home, my parents asked me to hang up picture frames, and I actually knew how to do that. And also what's really great about construction, what Zoe touched on before, was that with construction, we do what is needed for the community. So this past year, I know they worked on building platforms because that was really needed for, I guess, the rain or something with the tents. Our year, we built tiny homes. So it's really working with people who are houseless to kind of build what they need in the moment, which I think is really beautiful. In addition to all these ways that I think Zoe and I touched on growing professionally and personally, Tvnew also, like Steve said, has amazing outdoor trips and outdoor opportunities. We got to go to Seattle my year, which is really cool. It's only a couple hours away. We went rafting, as you saw in the last part of that video, which is also really fun, a little rainy, but really fun. And it's really cool, once again, to kind of feel empowered with the tools to kind of live on our own in nature. I wouldn't say I'm outdoorsy. I wouldn't say I'm not somewhere in the middle of not outdoorsy and outdoorsy. And before Tvnew, I couldn't pitch a tent. And now I probably know how to. And we cooked our own food. So it's really just very empowering to kind of know these skills and also just have fun doing it. This past year at college, I went camping with my friends. One of my friends, he did the fire, but I was able to help pitch the tent. And I do attribute that to Tvnew, and also just the sense of adventure and willingness to try new things coming from many experiences at Tvnew. I loved my time. I loved my year. It was the most transformative year of my life in so many ways. So I hope you all consider it.
Thanks so much, Eliza. We should out you and say that you, a second Saunders, joined us this year. So Eliza's sister Bella just finished Tvnew yesterday. Her year finished yesterday. So now we're going to turn to Dr. Alan Finkelstein. Alan is a parent of a past Tvnewnik. Ariana did Tvnew in 3 years ago, I guess. And Alan is joining us from Pittsburgh.
Hello. Welcome, everybody. As Adina said, I'm Alan Finkelstein. I'm a family physician in Pittsburgh. And my journey to Tvnew came through my daughter, Ariana. She was in T4, so 1 year before the 2 lovely young women that you just heard from. Ariana had a fabulous experience on Tvnew. She was feeling an incredible pressure to just go on to college after high school, just because that's what all of her friends were doing. And my wife and I just had a sense that she had been driving herself so hard in high school that we thought, boy, it would really be nice if she just took a little breather. And she wasn't totally on board when it was time to make that decision. And we kind of talked as a family, and, we persuaded her to go. She ultimately decided it would be a good idea. 1 month into her year, she called home and said, "Mom and Dad, this was the best decision I ever made." So that made us feel fabulous. That was great to hear, because especially because, we weren't completely sure that she was the one that made the decision, but it made us feel great to know that she felt like she had found the right place for herself. She had a great year. Her internships, in addition to construction, she worked in a day program for individuals with HIV. She worked in a woman's shelter program. She worked in a cafe, working with houseless people and to prepare meals for houseless people, which was probably her favorite experience. She loved that. She had a great year, and I was really impressed as a parent watching her go through the program. I was really impressed with the leadership that Steve and Adina provided to her and to the other young people in the program. And about a year after she finished, we continued to be in touch with Steve, and he asked me to join the board. And shortly after that, I became the board chair, and that's been a great experience. It's been a busy experience this past year, especially as the only physician on the board, because COVID was super challenging. We were wondering if we would be able to carry out this program, and I have to say it's a real testament to the program leadership, to Steve and Adina, that we not only did we pull it off, but we pulled it off to an incredible degree of satisfaction of the participants, with a really high degree of safety. I was just especially proud of everybody involved. I was proud of the leadership who really ran a tight ship regarding COVID and really did everything they needed to do to keep the pandemic, away from Tvnew. And I was really proud of the kids, honestly, because I think it's really hard for young people to live a life with so many restrictions. And, thankfully, they were able to do it in a setting where they could be together. And I think that made it easier for them, but also challenging, too. They had to follow a lot of rules this year. I think we're all hopeful that the rules won't be quite so intense next year. But, my role on the board has been to really work closely with the staff to help create policies that can keep everybody safe. And I feel like we were really successful with that this year. So I just have to say, through my experience as a parent and then as a board member and as the COVID guy, I just really grew to trust the judgment of Steve and Adina. They really have the kids' best interest at heart. They really work hard, too hard, to make sure that the kids have a wonderful experience and that they are safe and that they're given room to grow and to flourish. And, that happened not only to my daughter, but to so many other kids that I've seen in my time where I've been involved. So I think this is a wonderful program. And, I think especially with school being a different experience than it has been before, I think this is, there has never been a better time to send your child to Tivnu. I think even if school was, the way we all remember it being, I think it would still be a great idea to send your child to Tivnu, but, maybe even more so nowadays.
Okay. Well, thank you, Alan and Zoe and Eliza and Steve. I just want to say a couple words about the educational programs that we run with Tvnew. We do what we call educational explorations, or EEs, twice a week. And we cover topics like affordable housing, wealth and poverty, immigration, refugees, workers' rights, environmental justice, all kinds of different topics from a local, a national, and a Jewish perspective. And just to give an example, I was thinking back to a day in March where we had a really great day in Southeast Portland where we were able to talk about food justice and food sovereignty with Adam Cole from Outgrowing Hunger and his colleagues Leo and Jermaine, who are creating an African-American reconciliation farm project. And it connected really nicely to the learning we'd been doing about racial justice, and about the week after that, we talked about ethical eating and what Jewish law and Jewish life have had to say about those ideas. So it really, we try to kind of tie it in, and we didn't just learn with them. We also spent the day working at the farm, clearing out invasive species, moving logs around, things that are going to help them really have a great start to that project. And so I really try to help us explore lots of different topics from different perspectives. I also help supervise the internship. So if you have any questions about the variety of organizations and kinds of causes that we work with in the internships, I'm happy to answer those. So we have started to get some questions in the Q&A. Thank you for putting those in there. I'm going to read off one of the questions and ask, I think, Steve, actually, you can answer this first question. The question is about the size of the typical cohort and how many people we're expecting for the coming year. Do you want to take that one?
Okay, dokie, sure. So this year we were at 23. This coming year, I think we're going to be, let's say, 16 at the minimum, 23 at the maximum. We will cap it at 23, as we did this past year. And they live in 2 houses in the neighborhood of Irvington, in case you want to Google that, IRV, etc. It's a super nice neighborhood. Zoe and Eliza may want to talk to it. They lived as well in Irvington. And we have 2 houses, which are about a 12-minute walk apart, or a 2-minute bike ride. One's a 5-bedroom house. One's a 7-bedroom house. Each has 3 bathrooms. And there's an RA who lives in each house. And then Adina lives about a 3-minute to 5-minute drive away, or a 20-minute walk or so. And I live about a 15-minute drive away.
Great.
And I'll just say one more thing, actually, about Irvington. Sorry. I know the question was more about the houses, but that neighborhood is a fantastic neighborhood for us in a few ways. And Zoe and Lisa, if you want to kick in afterwards, go for it. But it's super walkable. You know, that they can walk to pretty much whatever they want, from restaurants to gyms to shopping for food, etc. And also it's very central for public transportation, which is very important for their internships.
Yeah, so I think that transitions nicely into a question about how does it work with the houses, and how much do the groups from the 2 houses do together, how much happens separately. Let's see, I think we're going to see if Zoe wanted to talk about that a little bit. And if you want to say anything about Irvington, Zoe, you can add that in.
Sure. So most of what is done with both houses. You obviously sleep separately. Once a week, you'll have like a family dinner with just your house. And obviously some free time is spent like separately at your own houses, but all of the educational explorations are done together. Shabbat is done together. Like I spend a lot of time at the other house, or having people from the other house in our house. So it really is like one like family, one community. And yeah, however much time you want to spend at the other house with people from the other house is really up to you. It's more just about, where you sleep. And Irvington is a really amazing neighborhood. It's kind of like, it's like calm and residential, but also very much like central, and a lot of things are accessible. The bus system is fantastic. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Zoe. There's a question about kosher, about how we keep kosher. And I'm going to ask Eliza to speak a little bit to that, and kind of Jewish life in general. And then Eliza, whatever you don't get to, I'm happy to fill in.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, great question. So the houses are kept kosher. We have 2 sets of dishes, milk and meat, and 2 sides of the sink. I believe my year was ingredient kosher, and I think this year, based on what my sister told me, it was hechsher kosher. Is that right, Adina?
Yeah, we always start out hechsher kosher, so we only buy foods that have a kosher certification on them. And then during the year, we kind of see where the group is at and whether any of that should change for the group's needs.
Yeah. So definitely like based on the most strict, I guess it would be, which is right, starting at hechsher, and then going from there. And also it was really neat, like learning experience to one, just have your own kitchen, having to cook and clean, and also kind of having that aspect of keeping a kosher home. At home, we keep kosher, but we only have dairy dishes and we use plastic for meat. So it was a different experience for me. And also I think for other people, it was interesting to get to kind of learn, if they don't keep kosher at home, what it means to keep kosher. And I think that kind of extends, it's just like manifestation or an example of one of the ways that we kind of experienced Judaism at Tivnu. I grew up in like a conservative Jewish household. Zoe grew up Reform, and most other people kind of fall somewhere in that continuum. And it was really interesting to me because I grew up in a conservative synagogue and a conservative camp, and I never really interacted as much with people from different Jewish backgrounds, where Judaism was also a really strong kind of part of their life. So it was really great for me. I learned a lot about people's different practices and traditions and rituals. And still at Tvnew, right, we're grounded in like the basic ritual, like we build a sukkah, we have Shabbat dinner, we do Havdalah, but then it's also kind of more maybe experiential or experimental, both of those. Like for example, I went to a day 2 Rosh Hashanah service in the woods, which was very cool. I've never done that before. And I also went for like Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So that was like 4 services total. I went to 4 different synagogues, ranging from Reform, Reconstructionists, and Conservatives. That was also really neat for me to kind of have this year to have so many options to explore different aspects of Judaism. Yeah, anything else you can add, Dina?
Sure. Thanks, Lisa. So we always keep a kosher kitchen in each house, I should say. And the meat and so on is definitely always kosher certified. So if we do have some flexibility, it would just be whether some packaged foods don't need to have the certification, but are still kosher by ingredient, because we really want to validate lots of different experiences of Judaism. And that is kind of something that Aliza got at in terms of trying out different experiences. We try to provide a variety of different authentic Jewish experiences to help the Tvnewniks explore those many options and ways of expressing their Jewishness over the course of the year. Some of those are religious, some of those are cultural, some of those are historical. There are lots of different ways to connect to Jewishness. And we try to do that educationally and also in terms of Shabbat or a holiday. For instance, this year for Tu B'Shvat, for the Jewish New Year of the Trees, we made Tu B'Shvat specific recipes from Jewish communities in India and Persia and Turkey, and kind of explored lots of different ways of celebrating Tu B'Shvat that people weren't used to. And lots of wonderful conversations happen, both formally organized and really informally, around people's experiences. As Aliza said, when you encounter people whom you admire and respect and enjoy being with, who've experienced their Judaism in different ways, it's a great chance to grow and think about that in a supportive environment when you have that kind of freedom to do that. What else? And we always celebrate Shabbat together. Not everyone celebrates by going to services. And in fact, Shabbat morning is free for people if they want to go or Zoom go to services of their choice. So we don't do counter programming, but we don't require that. Friday nights, we start out doing some kind of service or service alternative together. And then usually that becomes optional, or occasionally we do it all together so that people have a different experience of meditation, Shabbat, or something artistic before Shabbat starts, or different things like that. But we really, but we understand that the same thing doesn't work for everyone, and there are lots of different ways to get into that. The next question we had was about construction. Some people said, if you're not into construction, how does that work? So, Zoe, do you want to say something about that?
Sure. So I didn't feel like construction was, for me, the best way for me to, I guess, learn and use my skills. So instead, I worked with Adina and was able to figure out different internships. I worked at an elementary school. I worked in a first grade classroom 5 days a week, full days, which was really lovely, just getting to work directly with kids, growing like a relationship with my students and the teacher that I worked with, who by the end of the year really treated me like another teacher. I took on responsibilities that just made me feel very like empowered and ready to take on the world. And I think that is the experience of most people in their individual internships, just kind of gaining a lot of trust and responsibility. So that's a really great part about Tvnew is, in most like facets of the program, they will help you have the best experience and make it work for you.
Thanks, Zoe. This year we had to do a little bit of shifting of our focus because a lot of the direct service kind of internships, like working in a first grade classroom or in a soup kitchen or a day shelter for people experiencing homelessness, a lot of those were not so COVID safe or even available, especially like the classroom, for instance. So we were able to put together, a selection of internships that usually delved more into policy work and research and helping with social media and communications for a variety. There were, I think, 22 different internship organizations we worked with this year. That were still in areas that were of interest and importance to the participants, but got at them in different ways. So, for instance, we had somebody who was really interested in working on gun violence, and she worked with Lift Every Voice Oregon, which is trying to pass some new legislation in Oregon. We had somebody who worked with Pikun, which is a farm workers union, and they're not based in Portland, so we've never been able to have someone work with them before. But because of Zoom and Zoom internships, they were able to work with Pikun on relief for farm workers from COVID and from the economic downturn, and to work on lots of other initiatives with them. We had somebody working on solar rights for folks with solar power and so on, different kinds of internships like that. And we can mention also one more while we're at it, which is Eliza's sister, Bella, worked with a law firm that does pro bono, nonprofit law firm called Innovation Law Lab, that is a leader really across the country on working with refugees and immigrants from the time they cross over a border really until they are completely settled. So it involves both legal representation and policy work, and also the kinds of everything in between, like working with them in terms of getting citizenship or dealing with sanctuary, all kinds of different aspects of their lives. So that, I know that was really meaningful for Bella. All right, let's see what the next question is. So someone wants to know about COVID, and do we think that we will require vaccinations from all participants next year? Alan, do you want to pipe up about that?
Sure. I am thrilled to see that vaccines are finally available and seem to be plentiful starting just in the last couple of weeks. And so we haven't really talked about it formally among the staff and myself, but I guess my feeling is we will most likely require COVID vaccination to enroll in the program. That, I guess that's not official yet, but I think they are available enough all over the country, and even younger people now are able to get them, and so. I think I don't foresee a problem with the people in the age group that we're talking about getting vaccinated. So I think we will expect that, but I don't think we made a final decision on that.
That sounds right to you, Steve?
Yeah, it does. We've had conversations, but that, I would agree with Alan, is definitely the direction that I think we're going to go.
And I will say that we were very pleased to be able to send home all of our participants and staff this year fully vaccinated. So by May 4th, every single one of us was vaccinated, and as what we like to call ripe, so the 2 weeks after that second vaccine shot. All right, this is a different kind of question. Do most participants come from the West Coast? I can tell you that the answer is no. We have many who come from California. We've had some who've come from Oregon. We have, I think, our first Washington State person coming next year. But we have folks from New York, from Eliza and family from Maryland. We've had people coming from Boston. We've had and we'll have a Floridian and a Georgian. We have someone coming from Utah for the first time. This year we had some Minnesotans. We really have folks from all over the country, and it's a really nice mix. And some people don't have that kind of exposure to their peers from all over the country. Sometimes you might from the youth group or something like that, but a lot of times you mostly know the folks from your region, and it's really nice to see people compare their experiences and share their experiences and bring back that Tvnew flavor to wherever they've been and where they're going. Okay, let's see. I think we have time for one more question. And I think the question is, how did you know that Tvnew was the right program for you? So let's see, Eliza's nodding, so Eliza gets to go first.
Sounds good. I think Zoe might say some similar things as me, because we've talked this before. But I think Tvnew was like the perfect like middle ground of so many things I was looking for in my gap year. So I'll just go through some of them. One, I guess the first kind of starting point was that I wanted to be in the US. I didn't want to be in Israel. Don't have a good reason for why I didn't want to, but I don't know, when I was graduating high school, I didn't want to be in Israel the next year. So I decided I wanted to be in the US. And basically that chopped in a lot of options. Like Tivnu is I believe the only like Jewish gap year program in the US. And I wanted it to be Jewish, as my parents, to kind of have this like grounding, similar experience. And like Zoe talked about before, there's a really nice balance between having freedom and also kind of being like having support. And Tivnu does that really well with the staff, like Dean and Steve, and specifically with the RAs, that you're able to live on your own and cook and go on the buses and go wherever you want and like not have to tell anyone, right? You're on your own, but also if anything happens, and things do happen, right? Then you have someone to go to. And that was a really nice balance for Tivnu. Also, it aligned a lot with my interests. I'm still interested in social justice and social impact. And this program encompassed that really well, like perfectly, and had opportunities for direct service, right? Where more micro kind of discussions and interactions with social justice, and also more macro with the educational exploration, which is something I was really looking for.
Thanks, Eliza. Zoe, anything to add?
Yeah, I don't have all that much to add. Eliza pretty much covered it, but I did like a weekend-long Tivnu program when I was in high school with my synagogue, and we got to kind of get a little taste of the things Tivnu does. We got to work at a construction site and at a garden and explore Portland and have a Shabbat dinner with the current cohort. So it was just kind of in my head that if I did decide to do a gap year, it would be Tivnu. Like Eliza said, like it was focused on social justice and had values that I aligned with. I wanted to be in a Jewish environment, and Tivnu was just the perfect fit.
Great. Thank you. I think we'll have time to just squeeze in one more question, which was someone asked, who is the ideal Tvnew participant? And so I'm going to just throw out some ideas here and say, for me, it's someone who's open to new perspectives that you might hear from your peers and from speakers and from coworkers and from folks that you meet around town, open to new experiences, whether that's how to pitch a tent and cook in the great outdoors, or whether that's using power tools, or whether that is having a discussion about the history of Jewish women in the labor movement, and open to working hard. It's not a lays about the house kind of a gap year program. There is some time to relax, of course, and we want everyone to have fun and enjoy being together and enjoy exploring the city. But we have some high expectations of commitment to work and commitment to learning and growing together. So I think that's who I would say is our ideal participant. We are really excited that we have so many people here on this call. I want to let you know what some next steps will be. We look forward to being in touch with people who've been on the call and finding out what we can do for you as you explore the Tvnew possibility for next year or the year after, or for people you know who are exploring it. We're happy to offer you one-on-one phone calls with staff, with Steve or me, or with past participants like Eliza and Zoe, or with parents of past participants. We can't put you in touch with any current participants because they just finished yesterday, so we don't have any current participants. We just have a lot of alumni. And we're happy through those conversations to help answer your questions about whether or not this is a good match for you and your family. And then once we're all convinced that it is, then we look forward to seeing an application and having an interview and going through that process together. We do have a few spots left for next year, not a lot. And so we encourage you to move forward if this is of interest to you pretty quickly, and be in touch with me and Steve, or reply when we get in touch with you pretty soon. And Tvnew is all about providing people with tools to build a better world. And part of that building a better world is building the best you and having an experience that helps you figure out what that world will look like for you and what it looks like for your community and what you want that community to look like. So we hope that we will get to see some of you in our community in the future. I want to thank the panelists, Alan and Zoe and Eliza and Steve. Thank you to Deb for helping us with the text today. And thanks to all of you who've been on the call. We appreciate your questions that you added in the chat and the Q&A. That really helps us keep this targeted.
Adina, can I say a quick two things?
Sure.
First, I have to publicly admire you for the graceful way you do these things. So thank you. There's a question about if someone had a medical exclusion, like they were allergic to this kind of thing, then of course, we would talk to that person and they would, Al and I need to talk about it more. We didn't mention medical exclusions because they're fairly rare, but I'm sure we would work with a person that was not able to get a vaccine for that kind of reason. And then the other thing is I just wanted to mention, speaking of inclusivity, knock on wood, but to date, every single accepted applicant to Tvnew, everyone who's been accepted, we have been able to make it work for them financially. So, about 55% of our participants have received tuition assistance, and including people from, middle class, even upper middle class income sometimes. As a father of three, I know it takes a lot to try to save up your pennies and nickels to send kids to college, let alone think about retirement. So please, anyone on this call, as I tell everyone, whenever I speak to parents and kids, please don't let finances be an obstacle. Happy to have that conversation with you at any point if that's called for.
Great, thanks for mentioning that, Steve. Wonderful. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We look forward to being in touch with you in other ways through email and phone calls and so on in the future. Thank you very much. Have a good night.